Good evening and welcome back to the public meeting for March 18th, 2020 at 7 p.m. And I'd like to confirm the agenda. So are there any emergent items from any of the councillors?
No, Your Worship. No, Your Worship.
Councillor Bauer?
No, Your Worship.
Councillor Cox?
No, Your Worship.
Councillor Corbeil?
No, Your Worship.
Councillor Montgomery?
No, Your Worship.
Thanks. Anything from administration? Deborah?
Yes, Your Worship. I have a couple of changes. We would like to remove item 3.1, item pertaining to FOIP section 17(1)A. Remove item 3.2, item pertaining to FOIP section 24(1)G. Remove item 3.3, item pertaining to FOIP section 24(1)B. And then we would like to make the following additions. We would like to add item 3.1, item pertaining to FOIP section 24(1)G. Item 3.2, item pertaining to FOIP section 18(1)B. Item 9.4, penalties on unpaid utility and tax accounts. And item 9.5, emergency and working capital.
Thank you very much, Deborah. I don't believe we have anything else, so I'm looking for a motion to confirm the agenda as amended. Councillor Sobel?
So moved, yes.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the agenda as amended. All in favor? Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Councillor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And just for the people watching at home, in case our audience is up tonight because of the situation, just wanted to mention that we have 4 councillors who are calling in due to the current situation we have with COVID-19. Not to alarm anyone, they just felt it was safer to phone in, and we're practicing social distancing. So that would explain all that. Thank you. And that brings us to item 4. I don't believe we have any presentations or recognitions. We have no delegations. We don't have a consent agenda. And that brings us to item 7.1, confirmation of minutes, the adoption of the March 4th, 2020 regular council meeting minutes. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you. I move that council adopt the March 4th, 2020 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you very much. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Councillor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We have no tabled items, and that brings us to item 9.1, Canadian Badlands shareholder representative. And I think councillors who are here in the chambers have, because we have a situation where we're missing some people, we have some motions that can be brought forward to later dates. So I think there's a sheet put in front of you. Councillor Peterson. Sure. Councillor Sobel, do you want to jump in? Thank you.
Your Worship, I move that council postpone item 9.1, Canadian Badlands shareholder representative to the April 15th, 2020 regular council meeting.
Thank you very much for that motion. You've all heard the motion. Any discussion on that motion?
Yes, please, Your Worship. This is Councillor Bauer.
Yes?
I have some information that I'll be sending to Deborah Hammerlich that I've just received from the Canadian Badlands to go with that application.
Okay, thank you very much. So Councillor Bauer, are you on the board now?
Yes, I am.
You are,
It was
okay.
approved on the last day of the Badlands conference, and I am now a representative for Strathmore.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a motion on the floor to postpone that item, and I'll call the motion. All in favor? And Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Councillor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. which brings us to 9.2, Economic Development Update.
Your worship, I would move that council postpone item 9.2, Economic Development Update, to the April 15th, 2020 regular council meeting.
Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on that motion? Comments from councillors? Seeing none, all in favor? And Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Councillor Corbeil?
Aye.
And Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Thank you very much. You don't sound happy, Councillor Montgomery. Item 9.3, Aspen Pond Drainage. Councillor Sobel.
Your worship, I'd move that council postpone item 9.3 Aspen Pond Drainage update to the April 15th, 2020 regular council meeting.
Thank you very much for that motion. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor? And Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Councillor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Jason Montgomery?
Aye.
Thank you very much. That motion carries. I shouldn't have made fun of you being serious. And that brings us to 9.4, penalties. And I believe our head of finance is speaking to that. And welcome, Mr. Teedy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration has been contacted by a number of utility customers and property owners requesting relaxation on payments that are due to the town of Strathmore. By providing direction to administration to not enforce penalties on collect or take collection action on past due accounts, this would provide some relief to residents and businesses. In the past, council has not provided relief when requested to do so for fear of setting a precedent. The town receives approximately $3,000 per month in utility penalties, so we have in the area of $100,000 outstanding on past due accounts for utilities. And for past due taxes, we receive last year $192,000, and in the 2 prior years to that, it was just a little bit less than that. The tax penalties are assessed on accounts at 5 different times during the year at varying percentages. So the financial impact to go down this road to the end of May would be an estimate of $6,000 for utilities and $49,000 on past due tax accounts. And the waiving of these penalties will provide an immediate financial relief to residents. It may cause some cash flow implications to the town, but we're not able to measure exactly what that looks like right at this time.
Thank you very much for your report. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. I am prepared to move that council direct administration to not enforce penalties or collection action on past due utility and tax accounts from March 18th, 2020 to May 31st, 2020.
Thank you very much for that motion. Is there any discussion or comments? Councillor Sobel, and then I'll ask each of the councillors who are at home in our home audience.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question to administration. James, or Mel perhaps, does anybody have any idea if this could fall under the, in an area that we may get some compensation from the province?
Through the chair. I'm not aware of formal discussions at this time. However, I think this is something that would be valuable to bring up through AUMA and certainly through to the ministers, because we don't know how long this is going to last, and the financial burden, we just don't know. And so we certainly would like to get ahead of it and get a better understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Any questions from Councillor Bauer? Or comments?
No, Your Worship.
Councillor Cox?
No, I'm fine, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil,
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to, express to people that this council cares very much about what everybody is going through, and we will do whatever it takes to help our community get through this, including measures such as this. And I support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Montgomery. And I just want to echo that. Thank you for your report, and thank you for bringing this to us and looking out for our residents who, I mean, there are obviously many of us who are going through some struggles right now, and this is one way we can help out as a municipality. So thank you, Mel, for that.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So I'll call the motion. All in favor? Councillor Bauer?
A very strong aye.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone. And that brings us to 9.5, Emergency Working Capital, and Mr. Teedy is speaking to this again.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the way of a contemplated borrowing bylaw, the bylaw would enable and fund the town for emergency purchases. We do not know the amount, but we're kind of thinking at least $100,000 or more, perhaps. As a result of closing the recreation facilities, our revenue would be decreased by $130,000+ per month. 50% of the tax revenue is paid monthly by the TIPS program, and the other 50%, so approximately $9 million, would be paid during the month of June and due by June 30th. The town receives $1.5 million per month in total from utilities and tip payments. So the longer that this emergency event continues, the greater the degree of difficulty people will have in making their regular payments. And we've been contacted by a number of both utility customers and taxpayers asking about relief for them. And certainly the motion that was just passed will assist in that. But as far as an estimate cost for a 90-day event, if we're contemplating the fact that we could spend $100,000 to $150,000 on direct purchasing costs. The loss of revenue from the facilities, approximately $400,000. If we have a 10% default within the 90 days, that could cost us $450,000 in cash. And if we have a 10% default rate on the June 30th due date on the $9 million, we could be down $900,000. So the thought is that we should contemplate doing a borrowing to maintain cash flow for the town over a 90-day period. And that would be the calculations on each of those items. The interest rate quoted for a term loan, so depending on the term of the borrow, if it's a 1-year term, it'd be in the area of 1.8%. If it's a 3-year term, it'd be closer to 2%. If we go to a variable rate, the current variable rate would be in the area of 2.15%. That is my report, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. And before I call questions or comments from council, I just wanted to ask you, Mel, even though we possibly will do this borrowing bylaw in the near future, should things return to normal fairly soon, and our hopes are all that life will start to come back to normal, then the revenue streams that are back up and running, such as our recreation facilities, the monthly tax payments, those all things that restart will go towards repaying the loan?
The repay is something that council could discuss. If we do a variable rate repay with a financial institution, we could repay it at any time. If we do a term loan, it would be for the term that we contract with. For example, if we do a one-year term, we would end up borrowing the money for 1 year and paying the interest for the 1 year.
Okay, and so just to carry on, you're not asking us to make the decision tonight. This could be coming to us at a later date, but we're considering this now.
That is correct.
Thank you very much. And to alleviate any worries that are at home with our home residents, the town of Strathmore is trying to be proactive, and these are very uncertain times with this with this COVID-19 virus. We need to ensure that our town is strong and able to function on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. And with the loss of revenue from our various facilities, as well as some of the tax payments that won't be coming in, it's going to affect our revenue streams. So we need to be ready as a town. So I just want to reassure the people who are at home watching, that we aren't considering this lightly, that we are really trying to ensure that the state of the town is stable and it's able to function on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis during these tough times. So no other comments. Councillor Bauer, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, may I please ask Mr. Keaty a question?
Sure.
Mr. Keaty, would you please explain the pros and cons of borrowing this money versus using our unfunded liability account as a resource?
Well, the town is obligated to keep a certain amount of investments that cover some of the levies that we collect. We do not have access to the off-site levies, which form approximately $5 million of our investment account. The balance of the investment account, council is set aside for specific future purposes, and so the borrowing would, we could use our own resources. However, council has established the fact that we want to maintain reserve balances, and by doing the borrowing, we would maintain those balances. If we do not borrow, we would be cutting into reserve balances into the future to maintain our cash flow and maintain our payments that the town is obligated for operations and capital.
Thank you for clarification.
Councillor Cox?
Yes, Your Worship. Mr. Keaty, what would we be borrowing as a total?
We have not determined that number entirely. We had contemplated a borrow of approximately $3 million to be phased in over a period of time depending on the cash flow needs.
Thank you. And can you confirm where we sit again on our borrowing percentage?
If we do the borrowing at $3 million, including the potential borrow for the Strathmore Commons and Town Hall, by the end of the year, we would be at approximately 56% of the provincial debt limit.
Thank you very much, Mel.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm good.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mel, could you, Mr. T, could you just repeat what you said about the 900,000? So that would be 10% of the 9 million. That would be for what exactly?
Well, the $9 million would be the revenue that the town would normally receive in the month of June for the tax payment from property owners. The balance of the tax revenue is paid on the TIPS program monthly at approximately $750,000 per month for each of the 12 months. The town has a revenue stream from taxes of approximately $18 million.
Okay. And so you're assuming that we will not receive money through the TIPS program, some amount of money we won't receive?
Well, both utility payments and tax revenue are at risk with this present economic and health situation. And
Well, because I'm just wondering, like, because I thought normally we would receive the TIPS money would be from the banks, would it not?
yes, but if we have a 10% default rate, and some customers are already asking us if they can be taken off the TIPS program because of their different financial situations. And so I'm predicting that we will have a revenue drop, and it could be as much as 10%, it could be more, it could be less.
Yeah.
But we'll see where the rate of collection goes over the next 60 days.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. And yeah, I support as well. I think it probably would be prudent to go with a variable rate in this instance, but we can discuss that, I guess. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Montgomery. So at this point, Councillor Sobel, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very quickly, you know, I think it's important to remember that we're in very, very uncharted waters here, and nobody knows what this is going to look like in 3 months, but I think it's prudent to be in a position where we can cover our bills and keep the town moving. And obviously, there's going to be consequences to this event. And the other thing is, you know, from what I've heard from from our provincial government, I anticipate and hope that there will be some assistance to the municipalities. They were very clear on the fact that they wish to support municipalities in this disaster. And I'm sure we'll be keeping track of all these figures in that regard. And lastly, borrowing bylaw, even if we borrow the money, is not a spending bylaw. Of course, we would be only using what we have to use to keep afloat, so to speak. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to close discussion by just saying that our public will never know the amount of hours that you've dedicated to this, and I'm incredibly grateful, not just for the work that you've put in, but for the insight you have around the needs of people. I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mel, we'll just be in a waiting position until we see how the spring progresses, and then you may be coming back to us then?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. And thank you, councillors at home. This brings us to item 10.
We need a
Sorry?
motion on
Oh,
that.
sorry. Do we need a motion, or it's just? Do we just have a motion to accept the report as information?
If I may, Your Worship, my first suggestion would be, yes, could we have a motion to receive the report for information, and that I would like to get some direction from council, if that's appropriate, to give us some edges to work with in putting a bylaw in front of council. I would recommend that we do that, and myself and in consultation with the team, we'd like to propose a bylaw, but we'd like to get your support to do that first.
So in your direction from council, are you looking for us to have a motion that discusses the potential amount? Okay.
Just to bring a
Oh,
bylaw
just to bring a bylaw forward. Okay, thank you. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you.
Your Worship, first I would move that we accept this report for information.
Thank you very much. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Councillor Bauer?
Aye, Your Worship.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Peterson again?
Your Worship, I would move that Council advise administration concerning a borrowing bylaw to fund emergency expenditures and contain working capital in the event default on utility and tax payments as a result of the COVID-19 situation.
Thank you very much. There is Mr. Thackeray.
If I may, through the chair, as council appears supportive, may I request a date on that for the next council meeting, please?
Okay, Councillor
Your
Peterson?
Worship, I will amend the motion to say on the last line, to contain working capital in the event of default on utility and tax payments as a result of the COVID-19 situation, and to provide that potential, that borrowing bylaw to council at our next regular meeting.
Do you want a date for that? April 1st? Thank you.
I didn't.
Which is apropos. Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councillor Bauer?
No, Your Worship.
Councillor Cox?
Yes, Your Worship. Do we need to decide now whether we want term or variable?
I don't believe so. I think Mr. Thackeray and Mel are shaking their heads that that would come to us in the bylaw when it comes to us on the April 1st meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the options will come forward. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
No, thank you. I'm good.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery?
If you could just read the motion, I didn't catch the first couple of words
I
of it.
can read it again, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you.
The council advise administration concerning a borrowing bylaw to fund emergency expenditures and contain working capital in the event of default on utility and tax payments as a result of the COVID-19 situation, and that such a proposed borrowing bylaw will come before council on April 1st of 2020.
Thank you very much. Is that good, Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Thank you, and that motion has carried. Which brings us to item 10, reports, committee reports. 10.1 reports from councillors from committees on which they sit. Are there anything? Councillor Sobel?
Very briefly, it comes to no surprise that the AGM for the Chamber of Commerce will be postponed to a date that has not been set yet. It was set for March 30th. I reported it at the last meeting, and that is now delayed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Worship. So I know that Councillor Cox is with me on this, but the Wheatland Housing Management Body looking after social housing in Wheatland Lodge, the lodge is now basically locked down, and the residents in a meeting decided this together. They are incredibly supportive and are staying very, very strong, and it's been a privilege to be able to talk to them from distance, to hear their own stories of resilience and hopefulness, and so they're doing very well. The Marigold Library, of course, has also suspended all their meetings, but they are encouraging all their municipalities to engage fully. They will still have staff working from home. And if you are not aware of all the things that Marigold has to offer online, it is a banquet for parents who have children at home. So they will hopefully be posting and getting all those posts onto municipal websites as well in the near future. And I don't know if Councillor Bauer wants to speak to Strathmore Overnight Shelter. I'll just say for my own part that they are also holding well and following all the guidelines that were sent to them by the Alberta Rural Development Network. And all of these organizations have expressed gratitude for the leadership shown by the administration and the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Bauer, did you want to jump in?
I would just echo thanks to Councillor Peterson for following up with the Arden, their guidelines for homeless shelters in Canada. That was a very helpful document, which she forwarded on to our executive director, Elizabeth Karp, and Trent West. And I just want to say that Elizabeth Karp has shown extreme compassion and understanding of how this COVID virus is going to be impacting our shelter in Strathmore. And I continue to support her wholeheartedly. And as a volunteer, I feel 100% there are no questions in my mind that she has all the volunteers and the clients of the shelter's best interests at heart. And I know that Strathmore people are going to be continuing to be so generous with gifting and continue with any needs that the shelter may experience going into the future. Other than that, Your Worship, I'd just like to say that my other committees have all gone on hiatus because of COVID, and I don't have any other reports at this time.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Cox, anything from you on committees?
Your Worship, I am just like everyone else. All of my committees have been suspended until further notice. I did want to thank Councillor Peterson for her report, and possibly should we be letting council know that Mr. Eichert's motions to proceed to Treasury have been discounted? I'm not really sure what.
Yes, I can speak to that if you want, Councillor Cox. I
would appreciate that. Thank you.
So this was with regards to a public meeting with Wheatland Housing Management Body where Councillor Eichart from County of Wheatland had brought forth a consideration to the council about our social housing and whether or not whether the Wheatland Housing Management Body would consider going to Treasury to look into selling our social housing units in Strathmore. And so that was brought forward respectfully, and it was declined by the Wheatland Housing Management Body, and at this time they will not pursue that matter. Do I cover it, Councillor Cox?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm the same as everybody else. All of the committees have been suspended until further notice.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm the chairman of the Handybus Board, and I can report that the Handybus service has been diminished. We have cut back to basically just medically critical appointments or critical medical appointments, and we will try to sustain the service for as long as possible. But if it comes down to it, the service might have to be temporarily suspended. But Tracy and her staff are working to prevent that and to keep it going as long as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Sobel?
If I could just ask a question on that last issue. Just so I'm clear on this, Handybus is still running, but in much reduced times and on case by case. Is it case by case situation?
Your Worship, I can answer that question. So we have dispatch running Monday to Friday, 10 to 2 every day. And we're fielding, offering medical trips for only, as Councillor Montgomery mentioned, critical life safety. So things like dialysis, ongoing cancer treatments, blood transfusions into the city. AHS is canceling all non-elective surgeries, and so that's diminishing our requirement for the service. And the board approved to cancel all social-related trips. So we have very few clients we're supporting at the moment, and we're managing that with just our full-time employees.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tracy. So do we need a motion to accept those reports? Yes, we do.
Also move.
Councillor Sobel has made the motion to accept the committee reports as presented. All in favor? Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. Thank you very much. So we have item 11, items directly related to council. Do we have anything there? I don't think so. Item 12, bylaws, 12.1 fees amendment, fees bylaw amendment bylaw. James? Thackeray?
Your worship, I'm sorry, could you go back one?
Sure.
I have this immense desire to just mention something in regards to council, is that council announcements as well, or comments?
Yeah.
It's just, I'm watching some of the Facebook pages that are going around, and I've got these groups and people that are showing up and getting organized to supply free delivery of groceries and pharmacy products to anybody who needs it at no cost. I'm just absolutely amazed at the message that is getting through all this turmoil and grief that everyone is dealing with, that we have our people, so many people in our communities is looking after each other. And you know, without getting too sentimental, I moved to this town 15 years ago, and the thing that struck me at that time was the people in this town, and this is so clear as to the fact that I made the right decision. We have some great people in here, and it's making life a little bit easier. And I don't know all of these people, but to them all, I just want to say thank you. It makes our town proud. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. That's much appreciated. So item 12, bylaws, 12.1 bylaw 20-07, fees bylaw amendment bylaw. Councillor Peterson?
Your worship, I would move that council postpone item 12.1, bylaw number 20-07, fees bylaw amendment bylaw, to the April 15th, 2020 regular council meeting.
Thank you very much for that motion. You've all heard the motion. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor Bauer?
No, Your Worship.
Councillor Cox?
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
No, Your Worship.
Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, I just have a question. Just given like the kind of the purpose of the bylaw, would it not be worth maybe just doing first reading at least?
Question to administration, Mr. Thackeray?
Just through the chair, this is the motion to table was from Councillor Peterson
To postpone?
to postpone.
Yes. I just think that it's worthwhile to not do first reading, just especially with our council not here and just that not present at the table, and that we may be able to move 1, 2, 3 all together, and if not, we would carry on with the usual. But I don't know about the advisability of it. I don't know. I don't see any purpose. Oh, yeah, that's right, too. And if Jennifer were here, she'd say a motion to postpone is not debatable. Right, Your Worship?
I believe that's correct. Yes, thank you. So are you okay with that, Councillor Montgomery, then, the answer on that?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor to postpone that to the April 15th, 2020 meeting. All in favor? Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to 13, urgent business. I don't believe we have anything other than the COVID situation. Item 4, questions between councillors and/or council statements. Okay, that's okay. Administrative inquiries, number 15. Deborah, are we doing any tonight?
Your worship, those are just a couple of replies to your administrative inquiries, so we're not doing any new ones.
Okay, thank you. So are we doing each one as they come up then? Like 15.1 says trade shows in my, are we postponing those? Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Thank you very much. Yeah. So do we need a motion to accept those then? No. Okay, thank you. So that brings us to the end of admin inquiries, and that brings us to an adjournment motion. And just before we do that, I just want to say something to the public who are watching. And that is, again, I know you've heard this a lot. Did you have something, James? Did you? We have to go in camera? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. Then I won't say anything for now. So we need a motion to go in camera. Okay, I will do it now. For those of you who are watching, we're going to be breaking for an in-camera session to deal with some other issues. I just want to reassure everyone who's watching at home that this situation is being well looked after. We've had an emergency group that have been meeting regularly for a while now. We have a very strong individual who is the head of the organization. They've hit the ground running, and they're well organized and well suited to look after us all in this community. Just reminders, I know you've seen it on the news all the time, but please look after yourselves at home. Stay home as much as you possibly can. Avoid going out in public as much as you can. Do that on a really, as a much needed basis. Just make sure that it's a really important reason to be going out to businesses and stores. I want to thank our businesses in town who've had to face some very tough situations and decision making, and some have closed down for a while. We know it's going to be tough economically, but we know we also can get through this together, and as Councillor Sobel pointed out, we have some amazing people in this town who rise up and do things to help people, so that's much appreciated. Please, Strathmore, I know you will, because you've proven to be such a great community. Support each other, look after your own health, and then that way you'll be looking after the health of others as well. So thank you very much, and I'm looking for a motion to go in camera.
Your worship, I would move that we go in camera.
We have a motion to go in camera at 7:43. All in favor? Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
And we're going in camera.